And welcome to the China Mining Club, another video. And today I'm delighted to have Nigel Robinson, the CEO of Central Asia Metals. Hello, Nigel.
Yeah, hi, Andrew. How are you?
I'm very well, and I think you're actually on site in Macedonia at your lead zinc mine there.
I am indeed, yes. I'm over in Macedonia. I've been here for a couple of weeks now, and the weather's probably slightly better than what you've got out in the UK, but yeah, it's good to see, good to be on site, actually.
Anyway, here's your opportunity. We've got about 10 minutes. Why don't you present the company to the viewers?
Okay, thanks very much, Andrew. Let me present Central Asia Metals to the China Mining Club. I'll talk through the slides. If you turn to the first slide, that's a disclaimer, so please read that at your leisure. And turning to the second slide, just an overview there of where the company operates in terms of worldwide. We have two main operations, one in Kazakhstan, which is called KOUNRAD, and there we produce pure cathode copper through a process known as solvent extraction, electrowinning, and in situ leaching on top of some dumps from an old Soviet mine. We produce about 12,500 to 14,000 tons of copper annually, and we're one of the lowest cost producers globally for cathode copper, which, as I'm sure all of you know, is a very valuable metal in the world. We've been in production now for just over 8 years. We started producing in April 2012. And this year we've got a guidance out between 12,500 to 13,500 tons of copper. And I suppose the last key point really for the viewers is that we have a life of mine out there to 2034. And there's a picture there of Kazakhstan. I'm sure most of you know where it is. We're just about in the middle of the country, about 600 miles north of Almaty and about 600 miles south of Astana, which is the capital, or what is now known as Nur-Sultan. On the back of the success at KOUNRAD, we in late 2017 acquired a zinc and metal mine, an underground zinc and metal mine, should I say, in North Macedonia, which is in the Balkans, just north of Greece. Different operation, as I say, that produces zinc and lead in concentrate. And this year we have guidance out for 23 to 25,000 tons of zinc in concentrate and 30 to 32,000 tons of lead in concentrate. And again, we have a life of mine out at the SASA asset out to 2038. Just turning now to slide 2, just an aerial view we've got of the KOUNRAD operation. It's a huge site, it's about 22 square kilometers. And what you can see there on the slide is the open pit that was mined by the Soviets and up to when Kazakhstan became its own independent country, I think through to about the late 1990s before they stopped operations there. That is a huge open pit, as I say, about 500 meters deep, 2 kilometers north to south and about a kilometer and a half east to west. But on the right-hand side and to the bottom there and to the left, you can see what we class as the eastern dumps and the western dumps. And these are basically the ore that was extracted from that open pit and never processed. And what we do is we, through a process of leaching through small pipes, we put onto that surface highly diluted sulfuric acid. That leaches through the dumps, picking up small elements of copper, which we then collect in various trenches around the dumps, ship it over to the SXEW plant, which is standard technology across the world. And we produce around about, as I said before, 12,500 to 13,500 tons of pure cathode copper. The copper is in a cathode form, needs no further refinement or anything, and it's shipped off by one of our offtake customers, a company called Traxys, to the various customers that we're using at any one point in time. Very low cost operation, no mining equipment. It's more or less a process operation, basically, as opposed to a traditional mining operation. And we have about 155,000 tons of remaining recoverable copper at that asset. Just turning over to slide 4 now. SASA zinc and lead mine, which we acquired in late 2017. 3 key ore bodies: the Spinureka ore body, you can see to the left, the larger blue block that you see there, Kozureka in the middle, and Golemereka. We're currently mining on the Spinureka ore body, where we do what's known as a sub-level caving type mining. We've got mechanized underground equipment. We're currently doing sub-level caving, but we are looking, and the board have made a decision to move to what's known as cut and fill mining over the next 2 years, a more accurate method of mining with the intention of extracting more metal from the actual ore more efficiently and more safely. And currently, most of the ore is trucked to the surface about 30%, so sorry, not most, but 30% of it, most of it is actually hoisted to the surface through that shaft you can see in the Glemareka ore body, the Glemareka shaft. So that's the SASA zinc and lead mine. Just turning now to some highlights of results we announced on September the 16th, our half-year results for 2020, so results out to the 30th of June 2020. This is on slide 5. You can see some very positive numbers there, slightly less, I have to say, than 2019, because metal prices in the first half of this year were down on average 27% for zinc, down 13% for lead, and about 11% for copper. So reduced commodity prices have impacted most of our numbers there. But you can see still a strong revenue number, $75.4 million against almost $90 million in the first half of 2019. But generating a very strong EBITDA, a margin of 56%, and an EBITDA in the first half of this year of $42.5 million, down slightly from $56.7 million in the first half of 2019. So a good performance based on good production performance. You can see at the bottom of the slide there, copper production was fairly similar to the first half of 2019 at just over 6,600 tonnes. Zinc production was about 700 tonnes ahead at 12,203 tonnes. And our lead production for the first half of this year was again about 700 tonnes ahead at 15,140 tonnes. We're very conscious of our responsibilities to the workforce. We had no what's known as LTIs, lost time injuries, in the first half of the year. And in the first half of 2019, we did have an incident, which you can see there is deemed one of our measurable KPIs, is what's known as lost time injury frequency rate, how many lost time incidents you get every million man hours worked. And I guess the last point to emphasize on this particular slide is our balance sheet. We have a strong balance sheet. We do hold cash on the balance sheet. And when we acquired the SASA mine back in late 2017, we had about $200 million of debt on the books, which we've now reduced down to, in a 3-year period, about $99 million of gross debt for the first half of 2020. Our intention is to fully pay that down over the next 2 years. We pay $3.2 million of debt back a month, and we're on track to pay all that debt down by October 2022. And I've already mentioned the life of mine study, which is key to improving the SASA mine as we look to the future. So a strong financial performance, strong balance sheet. Just turning now to slide 6. What do we do with all that money that we generate? Well, we've got a very good track record of paying dividends back to shareholders. If you look on the bottom of slide 6 at the track record, you can see we first started paying dividends back in 2012. And by 2019, when we paid the last final dividend, or the dividend in 2019, which, sorry, was an interim dividend, we paid 98 pence back to shareholders. We didn't actually pay a final dividend for 2019 because of the COVID-19 pandemic and some uncertainty about production, but we are considering very strongly the reinstatement of our dividends in the near future. And you can see strong margins, I've already mentioned that, and how we generate value for shareholders. Last but certainly by no means least, we have a strong focus on ESG and sustainability. We produced our first sustainability report in April of this year, and we have 5 key pillars that we focus on as a business. Delivering value through stewardship, so strong corporate governance. We adhere to corporate governance standards in the UK, being an AIM-listed business. Maintaining health and safety, I've already mentioned, a good track record on health and safety at both operations. Looking after our people, we have good employee retention. We work very hard to ensure we develop our people, and we look at diversity and inclusion. Certainly caring for the environment. There's lots of projects ongoing at the moment to improve our management of water, how we manage the use of water, the air quality, the rehabilitation of any environmental aspects of what we're doing in the area, biodiversity. And we're also looking at energy use and you know, with a mind towards climate change and how we can do our bit as a small company in the global environment. And certainly the last thing on this is working with the local communities where we operate, not the most populated areas in the world, and therefore it's very important to us that we work closely with our local community and invest in that local community and get them on board with everything we're doing as a mining operation close by. And so finishing off there On the outlook side of things, we have a strong, sustainable business. We've got a strong balance sheet. We have good operational performance reported for the first half of the year. We're certainly one of the lowest cost producers of copper in the world, and we're in the lowest or towards the cusp of the lowest quartile for our zinc and lead production at SASA. Capital allocation priorities, I've mentioned already the debt repayments. We repay about $38 million per annum we pay back off our debt because of the low cost operations. Despite the drop in commodity prices, we have a good safety margin there to continue deleveraging the balance sheet. We're looking at investing in the SASA mine with the cut and fill project, and looking over the next 2 years to improve the operations at SASA. And certainly last but by no means least, we have got a good track record on paying dividends. We certainly intend to reinstate that dividend payment. And just for the viewers here, just to reiterate what our policy is on dividends, we pay back 30 to 50% of the free cash flow we generate from both KOUNRAD and SASA after taking away sustaining capital to our shareholders. That's 30 to 50% of free cash flow gets repaid back. And we've got a good track record on doing that, despite the uncertainty caused earlier this year by COVID-19. And I guess the last thing to mention, the reason I am out here in Macedonia at the moment is regrettably and unfortunately, we did have an incident at our tailings facility, TSF4 as we call it, on September the 14th, just before we announced these results. We flew out our chief operating officer immediately and our sustainability director, and they've worked very closely with the local authority, local experts, and also a company called Knight Piésold, who are international experts in tailings dams, to repair the damage, to look at the engineering solutions moving forward. We've now managed to do that, and we're back in production. And our key focus for the next year to 18 months will certainly be looking at how we can remediate some of the damage we've created from that incident. It's still a little bit too early for me to discuss on this particular platform the causes of it, but we're well down the path of understanding what it was, and there'll be a formal report drafted to the board, and we think we've corrected all the weaknesses that were in place at the time. So I think we've addressed that now, and we'll move on, and we'll look to make sure that we remediate any damage that we've created. And on that point, Andrew, I think that's really the end of my presentation on Central Asia metals.
Yeah, Nigel, that's a fantastic presentation, and you demonstrate very clearly how strong a company you are in terms of balance sheet and production and dividends. Actually, the one thing, of course, you can't quite say, but I will say, is that you do have a record in London for being one of the, well, not being one, or probably being the strongest management team for all of the do we say the smaller ex-FTSE 100 mining companies. So, and you have a very loyal shareholder base. Currently your market cap, really because of the coronavirus crisis, has fallen to about 300 million sterling. Yet you must have ambitions to do something, significantly larger. I mean, so maybe you could just quickly say, what would perhaps be your ambition of further growth, maybe bringing in another mine, and if so, what sort of area or commodity?
Yeah. It's a good point, Andrew. I mean, we have got two fabulous assets, as you rightly point out, and that's a good base from which to grow from. Our priority would be copper projects, but we've established a portfolio of good base metals, zinc and lead. But I think, if I'm being perfectly honest, the priority would be to try and get another copper project. In terms of jurisdiction, we're comfortable working where we currently work in Europe and the Balkans, and obviously in Kazakhstan and Central Asia region. So that's a priority for us, looking for operations there. But as you know as well as I do, Andrew, when you're looking at mining projects, you can't be too choosy about the jurisdiction. You can maybe be a bit choosy about the metal, but sometimes you have to look at each one on an opportunistic basis, really, to see what are the pros and cons of this particular project. How much capital does it require? Is it too big for the company? Is it just the right size for the company? So it's quite a challenging exercise, but certainly you're right. With our market cap at the moment at around about the £300 million mark, we have ambitions and desires to grow above that into the next level of growth, really. Maybe go beyond the AIM market and into a FTSE kind of listing, but we recognise we could do with being a little bit larger than that. And I think that aspect of capital market scale has certainly become important, in terms of liquidity and share, the liquidity of your shares, etc. So we recognise it. It's a challenge, and we are looking at things, but there's nothing at the moment that I could share with you on this particular call as to how we are going to grow the business.
Well, I think certainly shareholders would back you if you found the right acquisition. And the fact that you haven't rushed to just buy anything shows that you are treating it very carefully as to what you do acquire, which again is what shareholders would want.
Yes, yeah.
So Nigel, look, thank you very much for coming on and talking to the China Mining Club. And I'm been very impressed also how quickly you've sorted the issues out at SASA. You've done it extraordinarily quickly. So again, proving what a quality management team you are. So, and I hope when you get back to London, you don't have to self-isolate for too long, or it's not too unbearable. Thank you for coming on and presenting the company.
Thank you, Andrew, and thanks for the time.